welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. We're going to be talking all about the month of March in 2024. This is going to be my general overall kind of analysis of the month ahead and a little bit of a deep dive into some of the bigger energies taking place this month. I'm titling this video March Madness. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, smash the like button right down there, hit subscribe so that way you're alerted as to when I have videos coming out on the channel. I appreciate it so much, and do leave me a comment below and let me know what you're feeling, what you think, and give me some feedback. I love to hear from you guys in the comment section, especially if you are a first-time subscriber. I am happy to be talking to you guys about what's going on in this next month. My goodness. I'm not talking basketball. Okay, some of you guys got excited. No, I'm not talking about basketball. As many of you guys may or may not know, it's a big time March Madness for some of the playoff stuff. But no, we're talking about the Neptunian madness, some of the Pisces stuff that's been kind of brewing, which is going to come to a head in this month. We've got a major Pisces stellium that's going to be setting up right off the bat. We're going to see other planets kind of moving through and cruising through Pisces also as the month goes on. We're going to see some Saturn-Neptune conjunctions, which is always fun because we both deal with kind of like commitment, seriousness, timing. And obviously Saturn in Pisces is a little slippery. It's a little tricky. It's teaching us that we have to really get serious about our visions for the future and really assess this month. What are we holding on to, and what is time to just kind of like flush or get rid of or dissolve? And then we're going to see stuff kind of cruise past Neptune as well, which can be very inspirational, very creative. But it's so damn conflicting because as we get into Aries season, the second half of the month, we're still seeing some stuff going on in Pisces. Now that sun ingress is going to take place. Finally, it's going to feel like the new year. I don't know about you guys, but I'm looking forward to the sun ingress into Aries. This will be the astrological new year as the sun crosses into the first sign of the zodiac, Cardinal Fire. And that's a chart we're going to look at today. We'll take a peek at it. And then we'll be coming into Mercury retrograde shadow. As you guys start seeing the end of March, you're going to be kind of shaking in your boots a little bit, getting ready for some of the kind of festivities that early April 2024 is going to give us. So we really want to treat March as the month where we get grounded, we get quiet, we get prepared, and we're willing to kind of like let certain things go before we start new next month. I know you guys are always hearing that, but trust me. And then last but certainly not the least, we're going to see a lunar eclipse in Libra. Now this is an eclipse that got seeded back in October of 2023 when we had a solar eclipse at 21 degrees of Libra. So you have to think back to what intentions you were setting at that time. Now we're going to reach some significant conclusions, some completions. And this is the first eclipse that will be a series of eclipses this spring. The second one's going to be coming in next month in April. And as I've said to you guys in previous videos, yes, the eclipses are taking place first in Libra and then in Aries, but do not underestimate Saturn, you guys. Saturn is going to be that sneaky or that tricky little planet that we're going to have to deal with because we're going to see a lot of involvement with Saturn with both of these eclipses. So don't just look at Libra, also look at Pisces. So I'll take you through the month ahead. We're going to go through all of the big transits that I think are important. This is more general collective themes. So if you're wanting to know how the month of March is going to impact you personally, go check out my March 2024 12 rising sign horoscopes. I take you through all of these transits that I think are important for your sign, talk to you guys about how it may manifest. And equally, we will be having eclipse videos coming out pretty soon on the channel. That's going to be coming up sometime in early March. Just hang tight for that. They're a little bit different. I'm going to be doing my general kind of assessment for you guys on my channel, but I'm actually putting together right now 12 probably hour-long rising sign kind of deep dives that are more intuitive messages, talking to you guys how to prepare, what to meditate on, and giving you all of my recommendations to really kind of reflect. So I'm going to have those on my website pretty soon. So make sure you're signed up for my newsletter. If you are not already signed up, please do. That way I can alert you when they are available on my website. Very different, but I thought, you know what, this is a really great opportunity to be a little bit more creative with some of my content. Anyway, so let's start with the ingresses first. So those of you guys who are still kind of new, you're learning astrological lingo, no worries. It's a complex language, but the more that you listen to it, the more it starts to make sense. So an ingress is when a planet moves into a new sign. So it has to cross that 0 degree barrier, and then it's moving into that new sign. So planets ingress into signs. Signs are how they are expressed. The house that it moves into is the area where you're going to see the action taking place. So now's a good time to pull up your natal chart. Take a look at your natal chart. I'm going to talk about where these ingresses are taking place in the month of March. On the 9th, we're going to see Mercury enter into Aries. Okay, so we'll go through it in just a second, but just all you need to know is that the mind starts moving up much more rapidly. We're communicating faster. We're becoming a little bit more confident, a little bit more brave. And this is the first planet to move into Aries. We're going to see a whole slew of planets go through Aries over the next couple of weeks. So Mercury is the messenger. So communication, travel, business, self-communication, all of these things are going to become major themes with Mercury's ingress into Aries. I feel inclined to tell you guys, get really familiar with that area of your chart, both because Mercury will be here for an extended period of time. I think Mercury will be there at least until the end of April, because we will be having a Mercury retrograde at the beginning of April in Aries. That's also the house where the North Node Chiron conjunction has been taking place, bringing your attention to what you need to heal, what you need to tend to, and how independence can actually be a good thing. And then finally, we'll have a solar eclipse there at the beginning of April. So get super familiar with Aries. This is a sign ruled by Mars, so it's very action-oriented, it's masculine, it is passionate, it's quick-moving, and fire needs to express itself in creative ways. So with Mercury going into Aries, there's a lot of I am, I can, I'm doing. But it's also a sign that is about health, because it can be about fitness. So having Mercury go through this sign, we're going to be talking a little bit more about where we're taking the lead in some of those themes in our life. And it's also about communication, writing, driving. This is connected to Gemini as well. So there's going to be a huge focus in, I think, people giving their opinions. People are going to be very opinionated with this transit. Now on the 11th, we'll see Venus enter into Pisces. So it's going to move into its exaltation. Venus loves being in Pisces. It's so dreamy, so romantic. It's really great for those of you guys who are into art or metaphysics or photography. And I feel like this is a time where we're going to see some interesting stuff happening with Venus. As you guys know, Venus is connected to that South Node in Libra, and this is about dissolving or, releasing or letting go old love stories. But it can also be a time where we are tapping into karmic relationships. We are having dreams and visions about future people maybe. And it can be very inspirational with Venus in this sign because she loves being in Pisces. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. On the 19th, the sun will enter into Aries. So here in the Northern Hemisphere, we will be experiencing the first day of spring. So this is when the sun's ingress into Aries marks the very first beginning of the astrological new year. So even if you're in the Southern Hemisphere and you're like, hey, it's cold out here or it's getting chilly, don't worry, it's still the new year for you. This is a very important moment because this is the chart that we're really going to be looking at that's going to give us an indication of what we're dealing with for the next 12 months. And so I'm going to pull up that sun ingress chart. I'm going to show it to you guys, talk to you a little bit about my hot takes on what I think it means. And obviously the sun's exalted in Aries, so it's going to be bringing much more action or highlighting the theme of independence and also being courageous and being active. And it's going to go through somewhere in your chart. So you're going to have to take a look at where that is. But once again, get familiar with Aries this month because this is going to be a zone where there is going to be a lot of reworking, rethinking through next month's retrograde. And then finally, on the 22nd of the month, we're going to see Mars enter into Pisces. So Mars rules the North Node, and Mars is generally a planet that does very well in, Capricorn or Aries or, anything that's going to be much more linear in a sense of expressing its energy. So when we put Mars, which is the warrior, into a Neptunian sign like Pisces, it's kind of like driving in a swimming pool. You're not really going anywhere, right? It's hard to kind of get an idea of where you're going, what your purpose is, what your drive is. And on the positive, it can be about us really tapping into our intuition and our dreams and our feelings and our inspiration. And that's what gets us to where we need to go. However, Mars being here can give us lower energy levels, confusion. We might feel like, we're getting things done in waves and it's not exactly consistent. And we have to really listen to what our emotions are telling us and where we need to be taking action based off of our feelings. Obviously, when we're reacting in an emotional sense, it's not always a good thing because we can feel like there are some subconscious things coming up that's impacting us and our actions. We may not even know where it's coming from. So until Mars moves into Aries, which won't be for a few weeks still, there is this kind of like still navigating in the dark maybe, or we're feeling like we're having to drive through like the fog. We can't quite see what's coming. So be mindful that Mars in this part of the sky, especially as it's dancing with Saturn and eventually Neptune, can show us where we need to take action and cut certain tendencies, certain habits, where we're sleeping too much, where we're making excuses, where we're isolating. And it also teaches us that some of the things that we're needing to do physically is going to require us to tap into our spiritual side, our intuitive selves, and kind of sort out what's going on in other realms before we take some kind of action in, the physical sense. So you guys will see things are going to make sense more when Mars gets into Aries, but that's a couple weeks away still. Now for lunations this month, we're going to have a new moon, which is going to be in Pisces. Maybe you guys caught that video that I put out on Tuesday. If you haven't, definitely check it out. This is all about building your field of dreams, where the new moon in Pisces is kind of laying all the groundwork for what we are envisioning our future looks like, what we believe in, what we are praying for, what we're meditating on. And it's in really beautiful aspect to Jupiter. So it's basically allowing us to really receive more, to grow, to evolve. And it's all going to be based off of our faith. So that's a pretty productive new moon. Do something with it, guys. The aspects are lovely, even though it's pretty close to Saturn and Neptune. It's about making our dreams a reality. And 6 months from now, that's going to become a lunar eclipse in Pisces. That'll be in mid-September of 2024. Now, at the end of the month, on the 25th, we have a lunar eclipse in Libra, and this is going to be a very significant eclipse. This is completing, like I said, some seeds that were sown in October of 2023. We had that solar eclipse at 21 degrees of Libra. So you want to think back to what goals or intentions you were setting for yourself in the Libra area of your life. Now, this is that completion, that conclusion. If you're watching this at the beginning of March, you're already in the eclipse energy. So even if we haven't had the new moon in Pisces yet, it does not matter. Once we get about maybe 4 to 6 weeks out from the eclipse, we start feeling the effects of that brewing. So just be mindful that that is coming. All right. And we'll take a quick peek at that chart as well. And I'll kind of tell you guys what I think. But like I said, as a reminder, I do cover this in the horoscopes, so you can see how that's going to be impacting you personally. So let's go ahead and get started with the first transit. So that's going to be taking place actually on March the 1st. We've got a sun in Pisces that is coming into a sextile with Jupiter in Taurus. Now that was also kind of like, it's going to be brewing pretty much from now up until the new moon that we're going to have in Pisces. You'll feel it for a couple days. But when the sun is in a sextile to Jupiter, it basically means, hey, we're highlighting something in this area of your life. Pisces might be something hidden, mysterious, something emotional, like a sensitive spot. And the awareness that we need to be better with boundaries, Sun-Saturn conjunction, is going to give us a sense of awareness so that way we can be better with commitment, better with timelines, with schedules, or what we just need to chuck and kind of throw in the trash, because this can be about what we're completing, so that way we can have some growth. I'm loving Saturn sextile Jupiter. I feel like this is now Saturn, the teacher, working in harmony with Jupiter, the great expander, where maybe in the past we have felt like it's been kind of throttling Jupiter a little bit. but sustained vision, commitment to a cause, commitment to something that's for the masses, commitment also to our spiritual practice or our belief system gives us the opportunity to tap into more wealth, more abundance, more resourcefulness, better self-esteem, more stability, right? And so this is where we have to use Pisces intuition and Taurus's kind of willingness to kind of grind it out and do the work. Together, they are the dream team. I keep saying, like, this is like, I think of Taurus as like an architect, and they're sitting and they're looking at all of the plans that they have of what they have to build, right? Like, it's impossible without having all of that for them to construct things. So this is that kind of set of plans, or maybe this is that 3D animation of what the building is supposed to look like and all of the ways that it's going to be designed or it's going to be lit or whatever. So we have to really be focusing on what we're envisioning right now at the beginning part of the month, because it's setting the stage for giving us the blueprint of ultimately what we will be building in April, May, and June of 2024. So sextile is kind of a lazy energy. I still like it, and I feel like this is a day where you can have a dream or a vision or a feeling, and you're inspired and feeling optimistic about something that you're working on in the Taurus area of your life. Now this leads me to the 3rd, and on the 3rd we're going to have Venus in Aquarius square Uranus in Taurus. That's actually going to be happening at 19 degrees. So this is going to be a day where you guys are going to watch for a little bit of like relationship friction. 19s deal with Libra, how we relate to other people. Venus is in Aquarius, where it's more socializing, it's connecting to the collective. It's about groups and friends and team building and relationships with other people out in the world that may not be romantic, they might be platonic. But we're seeing a little bit of friction in relationships over values, resources, financial things. I'm finally starting to see it. And I've talked about this for about a month or two, where I said, as these planets would come through Aquarius, you're going to start seeing people that are going to be pulling their funding, or they're not going to be spending with certain companies, or they're not going to be investing with certain companies, or they're changing banks or whatever because of values, because they're going to say, no, it's really about supporting a bigger movement. So you're going to continue to see this out in the world. That's how it'll manifest, as a lot of like grassroots movements and people who are going to be, funding or investing or paying for things that's going to be helping the collective. And it does have some financial and some relationship friction. So it's going to also be a time where you can have a difference of opinion about spending habits with a partner, or maybe you have a difference of opinion about politics with a friend. And it can create a little bit of like some relationship friction. Uranus is a wild card, and squares do bring this need to kind of meet in the middle. So where Venus wants to relate to other people and she wants harmony, Uranus is like, screw harmony, I need to do what I need to do. And so it can be a day where we feel like we're willing to rock the boat a little bit, because we're really tapping into what the collective needs may be. And it may mean that we have to change something about our spending habits or about our values to kind of correlate, or you're going to go against the grain. Definitely a day to watch relationships and also spending, because there can be some very unexpected happenings taking place with finances, where, maybe you make a purchase and then you didn't realize that, it's not the right size, not the right color. You return it only to find out, what, I'm only getting a part of it back, or I have to pay shipping, to return it. Or you're getting the credit card and you're looking at it and you're like, my kid spent how much on this thing? So there can be some static over finances. Now, Venus rules the South Node, so it does deal with relationships, and Venus is in superior position to Uranus. So it's basically saying like the group initiative or what people are deciding is kind of trumping or having some kind of superior power over financial systems in the collective system. So I definitely think you're going to see a lot of people who are going to be voting with their dollar, or they're going to be making big decisions about where they're investing their money, or what stocks they're investing into, or who they're banking with. So watch for that stuff for sure. And possibly also like some weird wacky style changes. You might find that this is a day where you wear your hair different, or you're wearing a kind of a quirky pattern, or something different, and kind of changing up your style a little bit. On the 4th of the month, we're going to see Mercury in Pisces sextile Uranus in Taurus. So this is a kind of a quiet aspect, but still worth noting. Obviously, maybe you guys have noticed, I have definitely noticed with Mercury in Pisces, it's been really hard for me to form sentences. It's so bizarre. I have no mutable planets in my chart, so that's part of it. But I have found that I'll be like talking about something, even if I have notes for a video, and then I kind of like trail off into something else. And I'm like, hold on, I need to kind of bring myself back to the conversation or kind of recalibrate or focus on my train of thought. It's been so hard to formulate sentences for me. So I appreciate your patience. But when Mercury is in Pisces, it's not analytical. It's emotions, it's intuition, it's feelings. So we have to really tap into what our intuition is telling us, what our dreams are telling us, what intuitive hunches or gut feelings we're having. Maybe if we pull a couple tarot cards and we kind of marinate on that in the morning, and then we see how it plays out throughout the day, because Mercury in Pisces can be about divination. Anyway, Mercury is forming a positive aspect to Uranus. So similar to how the sun was sextiling Jupiter and it was opening up to expansion, now Mercury is sextiling Uranus and it's opening up to physical or financial changes. Ooh. I see Pisces as like a secret, seeing Mercury in conjunction to Saturn and Neptune, it's kind of sandwiched between those two particular planets, tells me that there is some information or some secret or some initiative or something brewing. And if you listen hard enough, or if you tap in hard enough, or if you're watching the right maybe like content, or you're listening to global news, you'll start to get wind of Uranian things. Okay, so remember, in April, Jupiter and Uranus will meet, which is going to be some big boom. And whether that's a financial boom, whether that is some kind of banking collapse, it could potentially even be some wild things going on in the markets. It can be some stuff involving internet. I mean, just a lot of stuff is going to happen with that conjunction. Mercury is kind of like taking a cup and putting it up to a wall and being like, oh, he's listening to like a secret conversation. And it's not getting out because Neptune's like, no, we don't have all the facts yet, or maybe we're still unsure about how it's going to go. And Saturn's like, don't you say anything. So Mercury has the opportunity to kind of tap into, wait a second, what's the chatter going on in that show or in that news program or in that article about, Uranus and Taurus. Now, Uranus, the dispositor is Venus. So when this happens, Venus is also kind of coming out of the square with Uranus. So I think it's going to be some chit chat about some stuff that's going to be going on with energy. I think it's going to be some chit chat about some stuff that's also going to be going on with increased food prices and other things like that are very, Jupiter, Uranus, and Taurus. And so you're going to hear a lot of like, well, I heard somebody talking about this thing and they passed on this information to me and like, I don't know if it's true, but like, it's probably worth taking into consideration. I'm not saying you have to believe all of that nonsense that you hear, but like usually with every conspiracy, there's a seed of truth there that kind of started that if you listen hard enough or early enough, you can be prepared. This is one of those days. It's going to require you to reflect, meditate, or kind of tap in or seek information in a quiet or kind of secretive way to be able to kind of reap the goodies or the rewards of being prepared. Now then we're going to see on the 8th of the month, Mercury will conjunct Neptune in Pisces. Okay, so I have to give you my whole spiel. First of all, this is at a Gemini degree. Okay, so what is Gemini? Cars, communication, radio, TV, siblings, travel, documents, all that fun stuff. So, and it can come in twos, it can come in doubles. So you might want to look for being double charged for something. You might want to look for where you maybe bought one thing and instead you got two, or, something coming in twos. But I think this is going to be about some kind of information, or once again, I keep saying secret, but I feel like it's a secret or some information that is not supposed to get out yet that is going to start to get out. Now, Mercury also has connections to Virgo. So this can be about job numbers. This can be about health. This can be about the service industry. And this is happening during a dark moon. Well, I mean, what can I say about this? Not a day to book flights or like travel. Not a day to be trying to do anything that's like crunching numbers or analytical. It's not a day to sign a contract or a lease. It's a day to be really cautious with words, communications, and commitments, okay? Because Mercury is weakened being in this sign, and then on top of that, it's also weakened because it's conjunct Neptune. So not everything that you read is going to be factual or true. There can be missing information. There can be the fine print that could really get you into some trouble, especially when it comes to financial or legal matters. I would say be very mindful of that. And maybe wait until Mercury gets into Aries to have more serious, committed conversations. I'll give you that date in just a second. Wonderful time, though, that if you have a dream that you want to kind of break down or decode, write it down. Wonderful time to be meditating, to be channeling, to be journaling, to be really sitting and reflecting and tapping into, what is going on in the ethers. Because, man, we've got quite a few planets moving through Pisces. And Pisces being the 12th sign of the zodiac, to put it simply for you guys, this is almost like December 23rd, 24th. It's like when people are kind of like checked out at the end of the year. They're like, we've got about another week left. We've got holidays in some cases. Some people have work off. Some people are traveling. Nobody's really checked in. Everybody's like hanging out and like talking at work, just trying to get to the end of the day because they know they're going to have a week off. That's how the first half of March feels to me. And so ironically, even though we're going to have a new moon and you're going to hear a lot of people saying, well, it's about new beginnings and new action and feeling your way into things. Nope. I don't really agree with that. I think it's about kind of looking around and observing and being like, why are things getting really eerily quiet? What's going on behind the scenes? What am I not, what feels off here? Or what feels like it's coming to an end? Or, where do I need to just kind of like take a step back and just reassess things before I'm getting ready to start something new in this next month? Such contradictory energies, both, Saturn and Neptune. We're going to feel that sense of restriction and limiting, and then we're going to start to kind of feel that dissipate as we see planets conjunct Neptune. Mental health is a huge theme with Mercury conjunct Neptune and Mercury in Pisces. So we do see people who have more issues with mental health issues, obviously psychological issues, depression, especially with Saturn being in Pisces, is a huge talk. The effects of isolation and separation in society, where we're having a difficult time expressing our feelings, our moods, and we feel helpless. Like that can be a huge theme with Pisces. So obviously like mental emotional health and that awareness is a huge topic. If you're somebody who's feeling mentally or emotionally unwell, reach out and ask somebody for help. Make a phone call, call a hotline, call a friend, call a family member, do something and reach out. Don't feel helpless with some of these conjunctions that are going on, because some of us are very empathic and we're going to be kind of picking this up off of the collective, especially around the time of the new moon in Pisces. One thing you can do is you can sit down and you can kind of write out how you're feeling, just to like recognize the feelings and the emotions and the thoughts that are coming up for you, so you can process them, so you can get them out of your body. And when in doubt, get in water, take a bath, take a shower, go swimming, sit in a sauna or a hot tub, go for a walk by the beach, hang out by a lake. These are things that you can do to kind of work with that Neptunian energy and to also help I think like assist the emotional body as we're kind of feeling some of this madness creep in. There's a reason why they say beware the Ides of March. This is literally what happens as planets are coming to the end of Pisces. Everything has this like psychotic disco and it just goes down the drain and then we start new. This also is the same energy because the 12th house can talk about like the cycle of the soul and rebirth, if you believe in reincarnation, where we have all of this stuff that we have to kind of complete before we go into this next life. So obviously Saturn in Pisces, heavy collective feelings, people feeling like they're just kind of shouting into the void, having issues with boundaries, having issues with alcohol, having issues with superiors, feeling lost and deserted. Neptune in Pisces, which on one hand can be very inspirational and very creative and romantic, but Saturn and Neptune in the same sign, it's kind of like, okay, we have to get real about, what our dreams are. We have to get real about the fact that we feel like there isn't enough structure in this area of our life, or we don't have enough leadership in this area of our life. So it's tricky. Basically, not a day to sign contracts. Be very careful with communication. Spot scams if you can, especially in emails, phone calls. Major visibility issues, especially with driving and weather. That can be another theme that we can see here as well. Now then we're going to see on the 9th, we've got a bit of an active day. The 9th is going to bring us Mars in Aquarius, square Uranus in Taurus. Very similar to the Venus square Uranus, also at a 19. Mars represents our courage, our anger, our actions, our passion. Mars in Aquarius is very much about being a part of the team. Where an individual takes action to help build some kind of collective movement. And Mars is the ruler of the North Node, and it's been in aspect to the North Node. So where groups of people are coming together that are helping bring awareness to individuals, especially people who have been hurt or harmed or people who have been injured. This can be about veterans. This can be about younger people. This can also be about injuries of some kind. And Mars squaring Uranus, hasty decisions can have major financial implications. This can also be a day where there are some meltdowns going on or some electrical issues with internet, because Aquarius is the internet, and issues revolving around financial trading platforms, issues with ATM machines, problems with getting money on and off of exchanges. This is a day that I would say that if you know that you need to go to the bank, make a withdrawal, make a deposit, anything like that in person, like do it before this or after it, but do not be planning on trying to make your weekly bank run or whatever on the 9th. Not a good idea. This is also, once again, at a 19. So this is about some kind of conflict or challenges with relationships. I am about 10 days out as I film this from this particular transit. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is going to be where some people are going to be like, I'm not banking with certain banks anymore, or I'm pulling my money out of a certain exchange, or I'm not funding this, or I'm not buying this thing. So we might see some cancel movements that are kind of going on with certain companies and things that people might be buying or consuming. So even I don't know what's going to happen, but you're going to see with the North Node ruler being involved, something's going down, especially because it's in superior position. So it has a huge effect on Uranus. I think of recently, I believe it was Chase and BlackRock that pulled out of the ESG stuff. I don't know if you guys saw that, but they're like, yeah, we're going to do our own thing. We're not getting involved in it. Why? Because there's been so much chit chat on the internet about people being like, what is this stuff? And why are you pushing some of these beliefs on, consumers? And why are we seeing some of these things that are kind of alarming about environmental things and inclusion things, which it sounds good, right? These terms sound good. Inclusivity, freedom for everybody, everybody is whatever, which we all know. I mean, we know that we're all equal. We know that we're all kind of in the same boat. But the way that it's being portrayed and how it's being fused and funneled into how certain companies have to comply, we've seen so much pushback with consumers, right? So this is basically more of the effects of this. We're going to see some more, pushback in regards to some of these things that people may or may no longer be supporting or consuming. On the same day, we're going to see the Sun in Pisces sextile Uranus in Taurus. So we've got the Sun here, sextiling Uranus here. So we've seen this sextile a couple times where shining a light on something that was hidden now has some major financial or physical shakeups. Well, the Sun has connections to leadership. It has connections to people in power. It can also be about creativity, self-expression. But I feel like this is where we're starting to find out, shift. Moon, Saturn, Sun, new moon coming in with Saturn. This thing is breaking down, or this isn't working, or this is no longer solid. And then the Sun sextiles Uranus, which is more echoes of, shift, April and May, big things are happening. So you guys, I'm not encouraging you to eavesdrop, but to use this example, you have to be the person taking the cup and being what's going on? You have to broaden your horizons. If you're somebody who's just looking at one form of entertainment or like media, or if you're somebody who reads only one newspaper, or you listen to one, magazine, or you're listening to what's just going on in your community, get bigger, right? The sextiles to Jupiter is also about global things. If you're consumed with what's happening in your immediate environment and you don't know that there's banking exchanges and all kinds of things that are biting the dust in Asia, if you don't know that there is like major financial like rumblings going on in parts of Europe, or that there's food supply, breakdown that's happening in another state, don't think for a second that that's not going to affect you. So go get your cup, right? Put it up into the wall. Listen to what's going on in other places. Maybe you're listening to some conversations of other people when you're shopping, or maybe in the background you're making dinner, and then all of a sudden you're hearing somebody talk about something that's going on in another country. Turn it up. Listen to what they're talking about. Prime example of some of the stuff that's going on right now in El Salvador. Some of the things that are going on right now in Argentina. I, for one, was super impressed to listen to the Salvadorian prime minister, I guess president. He came and gave a presentation for Americans and was basically talking about what he's done in recent years in El Salvador, and how they have become supposedly one of the safest countries in the Western Hemisphere, how they're cleaning up crime, how they're taking better care of their people, and how they're going through all of these measures to be able to create a whole new system for society. And what was beautiful is he wasn't just coming and talking about what he's doing. He kept saying, my Americans, my friends, our partners, you can too. It was so inspirational to hear him talk about that, because he's a prime minister of another country. He doesn't have to give a shit about the United States, but he does. And he was speaking to us in a way that's like, it can be possible too. You can have this too. And so I love that we have some really peaceful, right, Pisces, kind leaders that are compassionate, Pisces, that are inspirational sextiles to Jupiter. And what are they inspirational about? Financial freedom, Uranus and Taurus. They're inspirational about food and stability and security for everyone. They're willing to go against the grain, right? So these are some prime examples. So on this day, when you see the Sun sextile Uranus, it's going to shine a light on where you can maybe get a little bit more serious, buckle down, tune in, become more aware of what's going on outside of your fishbowl. Because what's happening outside of your fishbowl will very much impact you in the next couple of weeks and months. Now, same day, Mercury goes into Aries. Not a fan of Mercury at 29 degrees. Personally, I can always feel when planets are at 29 degrees because it feels like very critical. But much later in the evening, Mercury is going to go into Aries. So this is the first planet of this year, right, to come into Aries. So what does it mean? Well, the mind is moving up, it's speeding up very quickly. We're probably feeling like the words are just coming out of our mouths. We are ready to communicate, share, travel. And Aries is a very me, mine, what I'm doing, what I have, what I'm creating, where I'm going type of vibe. So, can it be more self-focused communication? Sure. But it can also be where you're really putting words into action. And I think we're going to feel like the mind is kind of speeding up a little bit more with this ingress. And like I said, Mercury will be here for like several weeks, so get used to that transit. On the 10th of the month, we're going to see, actually, let's do this. There we go. We're going to see Mercury in Aries sextile Pluto in Aquarius. So that's pretty much right off the bat. And this is where we're able to communicate and take action of some kind through some kind of transformative group or future related thing. Really passionate in a sense of communication, because Pluto adds the passion, and it also can be about digging deep and receiving some kind of information. So it might be a time where other people are encouraging you. Yeah, get on with it. Do that thing. You can do that. You've got it, Or through some transformation of our goals, we're feeling more optimistic and enthusiastic about what new initiative we have started. Very same day, we have the new moon in Pisces. So that new moon is going to be at 20 degrees. Maybe you guys caught my previous video on that. But basically, this new moon, which is smack dab between Neptune's kind of haze And Saturn's limitation is like, okay, we're kind of feeling maybe a little bit between a rock and a hard place. Maybe we have to really reassess where we're at right now and what we're ready to let go of. And the sextiles to Jupiter can bring abundance, it can bring growth, it can bring beauty, it can bring money, stability, support. And the sextiles to Uranus promises that change is on the horizon. Now, I really recommend doing something with this moon, setting intentions with this moon. Don't just look at Pisces, also look at Taurus because of the sextile and the fact that Jupiter traditionally rules Pisces and it's in the sign of Taurus. Set intentions because in mid-September of 2024, this will become a lunar eclipse. But I have a feeling this is kind of like, this is like the Pisces pandemonium. This is the March madness that I was talking about. All right, so then that's going to take us to the 11th, where Venus enters Pisces, which I'm excited for personally. There we go. This will be in the PM hours, but Venus enters Pisces. So we've got Venus, Saturn, Sun, and Neptune all in Pisces. So some of us are really feeling like we're kind of leaning into the waves by mid-March. Venus rules the South Node. So this being 6 signs away from the South Node, maybe we are cleaning up, we're healing, we're focusing more on healthier relationships, we're learning a little bit more about give and take. This can be a time also where there is some conclusions or completions going on in relationships as well. We will see as a part of the eclipse at the end of the month, Venus kind of in close proximity to Saturn. So I think that's also connected to it. But when Venus is in Pisces, I mean, it's in its exaltation. So even in spite of some other stuff being a little wonky, for some of us, it can be a very romantic time. It can feel like we are connecting with people, we're socializing, we are feeling like connections are very synchronistic in a way, that there are some fated connections that are happening. And especially those of you guys who are in the, creative industries, or maybe you're in the metaphysical world, or, beauty, lighting, photography, cameras, all that stuff. So great with Venus being in this particular sign. Equally, if you happen to be a Pisces sun, moon, or rising, it's bringing more sweetness, more love, and more abundance into your life. Definitely consider taking some pictures, updating wardrobe. That kind of stuff can happen with Venus in this sign. Then we're going to get to the 17th, and this is where the sun will conjunct Neptune. So this is going to be an interesting one. So here's the 17th, and this is really where I feel like things are really winding down because we're getting into the end of Pisces season. So if you guys think back to what happened when Mercury was conjunct Neptune, right? So that was a day that's not going to feel very rational. It's hard to communicate. Maybe you're feeling, like you're tapped in and you're, getting more rest, recuperation, taking care of mental health, sleeping, doing some divinatory stuff. Sun conjunct Neptune is similar. The sun shines a light on something, right? And so for me, I think about, this is like a weird example, but have you guys ever noticed, like when you're driving in fog and it's like really heavy fog and you turn the lights on, you still can't really see anything. You're just seeing more of the thickness of the fog, right? I don't know if this sounds crazy, but I don't think you're supposed to drive with like high beams on in fog. I could be wrong. But I've noticed that when I've been in some of that weather, especially recently since I moved to Texas, I'm like, this isn't really helping me. It's just shining a light and making me feel more confused. That's kind of how I feel about the Sun-Neptune conjunction. It's like, it's going to be like, okay, yeah, this definitely, what seemed fishy now really seems fishy. Now we're really seeing that something is off here. The Sun conjunct Neptune represents also loss of energy, loss of power, making sacrifices, giving up on something, letting something go. And once again, it's a Gemini degree. So it is going to touch on mental health, communication, our mental capabilities, how we are expressing ourselves, how we feel, and having a difficult time finding the words. Really, Pisces, I think, is about stillness and reflection and letting the things be that need to be. If it means that something needs to naturally come to an end, it will. If it means that, we need to kind of have a little bit more faith in the process of accepting what's going on and, maybe meditating or praying and asking for support and grace in the process of, some of the things kind of falling away. Possibly that as well. So Sun conjunct Neptune is a day where I feel like we can feel very inspired. But personally, when I've had these days, I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. I feel extremely lethargic. It's hard for me to get things done. I literally feel like I'm having to like swim against the current. And so this isn't a day to push it. This is a day to observe. Where is there something that's kind of, washing away? What's kind of breaking down? And another very important day to pay attention to what's coming up for you intuitively. Where's my Sabian symbol book? Do I have it with me? Let's see. I'm curious because that degree keeps coming up a lot. 28 degrees of Pisces. Sorry, I wasn't really prepared to read this, but now I'm kind of curious. Okay, so 28 degrees of Pisces. So you're asking me why 28 degrees? Because we round up. Okay, Pisces 28, a fertile garden under the full moon. The theme is a culmination. The symbol speaks to appreciation of simple things in life. The image of a fertile garden under the full moon also alludes to reflection, expansion of consciousness, and deeper understanding of the importance of traditional accomplishments or those achievements that are commonly recognized and valued by the average individual. There is also a melancholy or wistful undertone in this symbol. In his 1953 commentary, Mark Jones referred to this lonely genius, comparing him to the average individual who is blessed by virtue of his being the collective embodiment of those features that ensure the survival of the race. There is no archetype for the individual genius, and thus whatever he creates enduring the worth is given over to the world, and he goes his way alone. The creation of the Sabian Symbols and commentary by Mark Edmund Jones is an example of such an immortal contribution. The positive, at its highest, it represents material wealth, wisely administered. Negative, watch for greed, materialism, tasteless, and show. The accent is on reward and accomplishment. The fruits of your labor may manifest now in a tangible, satisfying way. Your greatest advantage lies in sharing what you have with others. Use your gifts wisely. Guard against boasting about your skills or possessions. Be sensitive to the possibility that you could make others feel deficient or somehow less worthy. I could see how Sun conjunct Neptune is also not feeling as confident because the sun wants to be on stage. It wants to show, I think of Leo. So when it's in Pisces, it's I have something that I want to share, but do I say something? Do I not say something? Do I share it with the collective? Do I share it with the class? That kind of stuff. But a full moon, a fertile garden under the full moon, appreciation of the simple things in life. And maybe the beautifulness and the stillness of alone time and the things that we do behind the scenes by ourselves and having appreciation in the simple things, in what's quiet. I lived in Los Angeles for a very long time, and then I moved to Las Vegas, which is probably just as loud, if not louder. And then I moved to Texas, and it's really bizarre because where I live now, I went from East LA to being right off of the strip, and now I am in a small community outside of Austin. We live in a back area where there's a cul-de-sac. Nobody really kind of comes down here. And when I first moved here, I was like, what is that? It's quiet. And it was weird for me, So I think of the Sun conjunct Neptune as that moment where we have an opportunity to kind of escape for just a minute and find our quiet space. And only then maybe we're able to really do some of our best work. But also moving through issues of vulnerability and whether or not we want to share some of our abilities with the class. So we're going to see then on the 19th, the sun enters Aries. Okay, so this is that what they call it? World Astrology Day? Is it Astrology Day, I think? Basically, the sun enters into Aries. So we have officially started Aries season. So if you're a March Pisces, happy birthday. If you're an Aries Pisces, happy birthday. Hello, if you're a March Pisces or a March Aries, can you tell I'm having issues with Mercury? Happy birthdays to you guys. Tongue-tied. But this is when the sun moves into the first sign of the zodiac. So this is when we have our reset, basically. So this is the chart that we would look at that would give us an indication of what's coming for the next year. So let me show that to you guys. Most people will do it from 0 degrees Aries, but I decided to do it from my location. So this is the spring equinox chart. At least here in the northern hemisphere, we're going into the spring. I know you guys in the southern hemisphere, you're going into the fall. But regardless, it is the new year. So we can look at this chart as showing us like where we're really going between now and spring of 2025. Some astrologers will look at this in a seasonal sense, so you can also look at this between now and the summer solstice. But we're just going to look at this in a sense of what this kind of tells us for the next year. So the equinox is actually going to be in the PM hours. So I'm central, so if you're on Pacific time, it looks like it's going to be around 8 p.m. If you're on Eastern time, it's around 11 p.m. So you want to be doing your ritual work or whatever basically during the evening hours. And the equinox and the solstices are when the sun kind of crossed that 0 degree cardinal point. So it's initiating a new season. This one's especially important because it's initiating, the very first sign of the zodiac. So it doesn't matter where Aries is in your chart. Both the solar eclipse, the retrograde, and this ingress represent starting something or initiating something new. So it doesn't have to be in your first house. It could be in your 6th house. It could be in your 12th house. It doesn't matter. This is the energy where you start something new, which sets the tone for the rest of the year. So it's important that you work with this energy. 0 degree cardinal points, these are the world axis points. So it's pretty common when we see planets that are kind of going over these degrees, that there are some very big global events that are taking place. For me, where I'm at, it gave me a Scorpio rising. So it'll be different depending on where you are, but I'm just assessing this chart. Scorpio rising chart, and the sun is going to move into Aries, and it looks like it's going to be technically for me in the 5th house. But basically the sun's in Aries, and the ruler of this chart is Pluto and also Mars, and they're in the same sign. And whether you look at this from this perspective or you look at it 0 Aries, I'll show you both. The planets are still going to be in the same signs and the same degrees. They're just going to be broken up into different houses. But I found it interesting that when I looked at it here, Pluto is conjunct the IC, so it's bringing change and transformation to home and emotional space and things revolving around like family. And it's in opposition to the moon, which is one of the most sensitive parts of the chart. So the moon is generally kind of like the collective. So moon in opposition to Pluto. Well, Pluto can be about big changes going on for groups, for politics, for the collective, for the environment. And the moon in Leo is very razzle-dazzle, very dramatic. It is creative, it's passionate. So off the bat, watching a moon oppose Pluto, regardless of where it is a pretty big degree, a pretty big aspect. The sun's always going to be at 0 degrees. We've got Mars in Aquarius, Venus conjunct Saturn, and probably what caught my eye, at least where I'm at, is going to be the moon and Pluto squaring all of these 4 points. So maybe this is a little bit more personal for me. So I'll show you just the regular chart. 0 degrees, where is it? There we go, 0 degrees Aries. Okay, so this is if we look at it from 0 degrees perspective, 0 Aries. So this is still the same chart, Aries, sun, the moon in Leo, and the opposition to Pluto. The moon is trining the sun. So if we've got an exalted sun, and the sun is basically about action, creativity, physical, abilities, what new things we're initiating. The trine between the sun and the moon is actually a really positive indication that, we're starting to get into alignment with our actions and also our emotions. The moon also rules things like public opinion, women, creativity, children, homes. So a lot of people are going to be more proactive when it comes to these topics. Now, that moon, obviously in opposition to Pluto, does kind of feel threatened. So there can be this feeling of, being threatened with the idea of change, or where major changes in policy revolving around environmentalism is impacting or threatening homes, creative spaces, younger people, children. For the next year, there is this feeling of this rebellion that's going on. Leo represents youth, right? That's what it's about, younger people. And, Aquarius represents older generations, or, collectives. So collectives versus individuals. This is also kind of connected to Saturn, which is in Pisces. So there can be this feeling of being like, well, we're trying to limit something. We're trying to maybe keep people from Venus-Saturn things. Coming together, committing, partnering, helping one another, building relationships, things like that. The sign of Leo also deals with things like the stock market. It also deals with gambling, hobbies, self-employment. So that in opposition to Pluto, I do feel like there's going to be some challenges in the way that we look at some of these topics. And then obviously the North Node is in Aries, and Mercury is very close to the North Node. We haven't talked about this yet because it's about to happen. But we have right around the 18th, Mercury is in shadow. So something else you'll see, just prior to this is as soon as Mercury hits the North Node, I'll show that to you in a second, we're in the shadow of the Mercury retrograde, which will be taking place next month. So Mercury conjunct the North Node represents conversations of destiny, destined things we're supposed to be talking about, we're supposed to be discussing, where we're, creating plans and taking some kind of action. Mercury is the messenger, and he is right between the North Node and Chiron, so we can be feeling like we are going to be cast out if we're speaking out or we're speaking up. We can feel like we're being alienated in society. I think with Mars' sextile to this, it's kind of saying there's enough people who are getting fed up, agitated, stressed out, kind of like fit to be tied, like their patience is wearing thin. And it can mean that this is having an impact on our physical bodies, the effect that stress has on our physical bodies. That anger has, that reaction, that heatedness that we get from Aries, where it's creating some real issues for ourselves. And Aries rules the head. It's also connected to younger people or veterans or military. It can also be extremely significant for things, specifically in these degrees that deal with strokes, unfortunately. And how the blood circulation is kind of, or the circulation of the blood in our head is affected. So I think that we're going to be hearing more about that in general. Venus conjunct Saturn too, a little bit of a wonky energy because it is 12th house to this. So it does feel like, relationships are taking a hit. There may be a kind of a feeling of, well, it's challenging to work with other people, or it's challenging to get, support. But even in spite of that, some of the other aspects that you see between the sun and the moon, which reflect each other, the sun is technically associated with Leo, and the moon is technically associated with the sun, and it's in the 5th house. So it's not about what's coming to fruition. It's about what's happening now. Are we creating our future now? Are we focusing on our happy now? Are we taking action and, better raising children now? I would think so with some of these transits. But I'm not a fan of the moon in opposition to Pluto, because I do feel like this is going to cause a lot of emotional stress and a lot of people to have major changes on the home front in the next year or within their home country. And I'm not a fan of Venus conjunct Saturn behind the sun, because it does make me feel like it's going to create a lot of issues in relationships, especially professional relationships, because Venus is at a 10, Saturn is at a 12, so it can be dissolving things. Saturn represents business and leadership. So I do feel like this is also an indication that we're going to see some challenges where some people are going to say, I don't feel like I'm being supported by my employer. I don't feel like they care about my mental health. I don't feel like I'm maybe in the right position or in the right job. I don't feel like I'm being, heard. Now, the positive in this is like this moon in Leo trine the sun is you're going to see a lot of people who are going to be like, I want to start my own business. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to work for myself. I want to learn a new skill or a new trade. And I think that that Mercury conjunct the North Node is going to get a lot of people kind of saying, what can I learn? You know, I think we're going to see a revival of trade schools big time, where people are going and learning how to be a plumber, you know, how to weld, how to work as a mechanic, you know, how to do things that are going to be trades that are going to be handy and necessary. I also think that we're going to see a major focus both with this ingress, but also the solar eclipse in Aries. Like fitness and health is about to be a whole thing, like a whole thing. And it's going to be more so where people are taking action into their own hands and being like, what can I do to become strong, to become more independent and self-sufficient? And really what the retrograde is going to teach us is that it starts with our mind. We have to get our mind in order. We have to be looking at how mental health is very much impacted by physical habits, dietary habits. If we are maybe, you know, needing to scale back on just treating the symptoms and really get to the root cause, you know, people dealing with depression, huge theme with all these planets in Pisces, people dealing with issues with sleep, Pisces related stuff too. So I think a lot of people are going to be looking around being like, okay, you know, I need something that's working, and possibly a little bit more fitness and health and wellness is going to be the key, and really taking your healing into your own hands is the idea. Let's go back to these transits here. So one thing I also wanted to show you guys is when Mercury comes into shadow. So Mercury will hit shadow right here on the 18th of March. Now, what does that mean? Mercury is entering the degree which it will retrograde back to. So somewhere around the 2nd of April, Mercury will start its retrograde. And Mercury will retrograde from the later degrees of Aries all the way back to 15 degrees of Aries. So the shadow is essentially when Mercury is coming into that territory. I always think of like Mercury shadow as like, so many Mercury examples today, but whatever. I think of Mercury going into an area where there's booby traps. I know that sounds weird. Where there's booby traps, and you know, Mercury's like, okay, I know that there's some booby traps around here because I've been told this is when I start getting to that area where there's an electric fence or there's, you know, some whatever, something that could string him up and catch him. So the awareness that there's booby traps is what you need to be mindful of. And what are the Mercury shadow booby traps? Car issues, computer crashes, miscommunications, forgetting you know, your gadget somewhere, losing something, maybe hearing from the past. So anything that is about communication or business or travel can kind of start to come up, and you can see that the dust cloud getting kicked up, and you can get caught up in one of those booby traps. A very interesting Mercury retrograde, because it's like the universe is like doing this with all these Aries transits, which makes sense. It's literally where I feel like Sky Daddy is like shaking us, being like, you need to get your shift together. Mercury conjunct the North Node is about having destined conversations. And in this case, I think it's yourself. And this is a day to really pay attention and ask yourself, what am I going to do? Where am I taking some kind of action? Where am I initiating something new? What do I want? What am I working towards? What are my goals? Accountability is a huge theme. But Mercury also will conjunct Chiron, where we're kind of like feeling wounded about saying something or speaking out, or maybe with Mercury coming into shadow, we're going to be readdressing and reassessing and opening up and talking again about old personal wounds. So that's what's going to happen. So you'll start seeing the booby traps. That's coming up then. And then we're going to see, let's see, on the 21st, okay, so Sun goes into Aries. Okay, then on the 21st, we're going to see Sun sextile Pluto. So where the Sun is shining a light on new beginnings, taking action, and making big transformation with our goals, our friends, and our networking. So sextile, lazy energy, but whatever. In the background, I'm more focused on Venus conjunct Saturn because it's at a 12. So it's a very Piscean energy. And this should be about, I'm going to assume, some kind of ending in regards to either a dissolving of a relationship, dissolving of a financial situation. I'm looking at the sextile to Jupiter. I'm also thinking, like, because Venus is the ruler of the South Node, March 21st is a day where there can definitely be some relationship breakdown. There can be a final sense of just letting someone or something go. On the flip side, Venus is exalted, and Venus and Saturn do like each other. So this can be a time where, you know, maybe you're letting go of one relationship because you know in your heart of hearts that there's something better coming. Maybe it's a time where, you know, you're recognizing that, you know what, other people are going through something and you can't take whatever they're going through personally. All you can do is focus and kind of stay in your own lane. Great day for business, though, I will say that, because this can be about business contracts and commitments and mergers, but in just general terms can be a little bit more tricky for relationships. And I do think that, you know, this being behind the sun, there can be some stuff going on where relationships are dissolving because of dishonesty. You know, 12, where people go missing, where things go hidden. This can also be a time where money goes missing or something is kind of like out of place. This can bring structure, though, to things that we're designing, things that we're creating. But still, I'm kind of curious how that's going to manifest. And then that'll also be a part of eventually the eclipse. So Venus conjunct Saturn can be strengthening bonds in the right relationship if you play it correctly. But 12s are a little tricky. Then we're going to see on the 22nd, Mars enters Pisces. So we've got the North Node ruler entering Pisces. And this is where I think things are kind of weird. Okay, so when we're looking at Aries, right? The Sun in Aries, the North Node in Aries, even Mercury. This is all, the dispositor of all of this is Mars. So I look at like the Sun being in Aries and the North Node still conjunct Chiron, where we're healing and working through our stuff. And then like Mercury is getting ready to go retrograde. It's very clear that on a personal level, like in our own independent lives, outside of our relationships or our job or our relationships with our family, you know, people are about to be feeling a little mixed up. People are about to be feeling like they need to totally reassess what direction they're going in their life. And all of this is being orchestrated. It's like the strings that are being pulled are actually by Mars behind the scenes. So people can get angry, reactionary, violent with, you know, Sun, North Node, Chiron, and Mercury all being in Aries, especially if people are feeling like they're being cast out, or they're being, you know, isolated, or if they're being, you know, if you're triggering somebody's wounds. Like, you never know what somebody could do with some of these placements. And I don't like saying that, but in previous videos when I've brought some of this stuff up about some collective themes, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of it transpire. So you have to understand, with Mars ruling Aries in the 12th house, it means that people are going to start acting weird and acting different and acting like their wounds are being kind of exposed because of something else going on behind the scenes. Okay, so what is Mars in Pisces? Stormy weather. It can also mean, you know, people who are feeling like they're repressing their anger. They're not expressing their frustration. They're holding it inside. They're keeping it inside. And that suddenly when this retrograde hits, when we start to see, you know, conjunctions between like Mars and Saturn, it's going to be like, you know, when we're not expressing it, how does that have a negative impact on our health? How do we have rashes, accidents, cuts, burns, fevers, boils, skin issues, all kinds of stuff, purely because, well, we've been repressing all of that and holding it in. Now, I'm not advocating anger and hostility and violence. No, it's not what I'm saying. But there needs to be a healthy outlet for being frustrated and being able to express it. Now, maybe Mars in Pisces in the 12th house can be through some combination of, you know, spirituality or water and fitness. Like, I think of competitive swimming, very like Mars, Neptune, or Mars in Pisces. I think about hot yoga. I think about people who are proactively, regularly practicing their spiritual practice. They're doing their meditation. They're giving their offerings. They're going to temple. They're going to church. You know, they're working up a sweat listening to their sermon while they're going, you know, to the gym, that kind of stuff. Some combination of action and fitness and spirituality, drive and purpose, but also this connection to something bigger than ourselves. What I would say to really pay attention to is your energy, your vibe. If Pisces is the vibes that we can't see, Aries is the physical body. So this is what we can see. This is what's rising. So with Neptune, Venus, Saturn, and Mars in Pisces, and then we see this Mercury retrograde roll through in Aries in April. I hate to say it, but like a lot of people are going to get sick. A lot of people are going to be very reactionary. They're going to be frustrated. They're going to feel like they've been abandoned. They're going to be upset when they start to hear some of the news that's coming out in the world. They're going to get confused. They're not going to understand. And that's because Mars is going to be behind this. So we have to kind of check our vibe. We have to be mindful of what we are kind of putting ourselves around, what we're going out in the world, assuming that other people are kind of going through these feelings, and not everybody is conscious of what's happening. So as above, so below. Pisces can literally be what's above us that we don't see, what's around us. And Aries is the physical body. So it's like, I hate to be that person, you know, to be like, oh yeah, be the crystal girl. But like, you need to be meditating and keeping stuff on your body. You know, I love using shungite. That's something that I always wear on my body now because I'm trying to block some of these weird vibrations. I'm working with sound healing and I'm listening to all of my megahertz. I'm doing that. I'm regularly now making sure that I'm taking my salt baths and I'm throwing in my Epsom and my baking soda and all that stuff because I'm just like, oh, I just get slime just going out there because there's a lot of people that are like out of it. And so we have to really work hard this month to maintain our sense of spiritual hygiene and balance and protection and putting up that armor before we go out, because we're going to see a lot of people who aren't going to understand as we're getting into April what's going on. You're going to see a lot of angry people and they're not going to understand what's going on. Personally, I think that the frequencies are changing. I also think we're getting hit with frequencies. That's just my opinion. And so we have to find a way to combat it. So with Mars in Pisces, you know, your energy levels are going to kind of wax and wane. You're going to kind of feel it come in waves. And Mars is going to go into some tricky territory, but I think that's more next month. All right, on the 24th, we're going to see Venus sextile Jupiter in Pisces. I like that. So that's going to be right here. Yeah, earlier in the day. So two things are kind of happening here. We've got Venus leaving the conjunction with Saturn, sextiling Jupiter. So it's a slight sextile, but still it's something worth mentioning where we can have a little bit of faith or be tapped in or willing to make a sacrifice for something bigger or better that comes down the line. And then two, we're coming into the lunar eclipse energy now. So let's look at that. That'll be on the 25th. And that is going to be basically impacting anybody who's got planets, let's say, 2 to about 7 degrees of Libra, sun, moon, or rising personal planet. So this is a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. In Libra. I keep thinking about the one in the spring. I'm sorry, in the fall. I'm sorry. So this is a full moon lunar eclipse in Libra. So that means that it's completing a cycle that we actually started last year. Let me show you that. Okay, so think about October 14th, 2023. We had a new moon solar eclipse in Libra at 21. How can we forget? This was with Venus in opposition to Saturn. So there was a lot of separating from things that weren't supporting us, removing something from our life that's not healthy. And so here we are now 6 months later, and we are completing that phase. All right, so look at where Libra is in your chart. 5 degrees is where it's at. This is ruled by Venus, and Venus is conjunct Saturn. The sacrifices we make for the things that we love. That's kind of how I see this. Whether it's people, things, jobs, relationships, what we are willing to kind of give up or surrender if it's not serving our highest good, our best good. And that can be our favorite toxic person. That can also be our favorite habit. That can be, sometimes the darker side of South Node in Libra is where we become too much of a people pleaser, too much of a pushover. We care too much about what other people think. We're focusing much more on others than we are on ourselves. And so it's interesting to see this full moon come through at a 5 degree, which is about romance and drama and relationship stuff and children and dating. Like, it's going to be not just because it's a Libra lunar eclipse, which is already really dramatic and emotional, but because it's at that 5 degree, it adds that Leo flair, and it's a South Node eclipse, and then the ruler is conjunct Saturn. It's like, this is when people are pulling the bandage off and they're like, okay, this really has to come to an end here. And then in 2 weeks' time, we have a solar eclipse in Aries, which is going to be about that self-healing. So believe it or not, you're going to see a lot of relationship breakdown happening here. And I don't think it's going to be easy, because I think it may be bringing up for some people where we're very codependent, or we're too reliant on other people, or we care too much about what other people think. And I think so much of all of this Aries season and Pluto in Aquarius is like, stop caring about what other people think. Do what's best for you, right? Physically, emotionally, spiritually. Don't go along with the crowd. Be an individual, It's okay to be different. Speaking out. You don't have to go along with something just because other people are going along with it. And if you fear that certain people, relationships, partners won't support you, well, then it wasn't meant to be. So we're going to definitely see some relationship turmoil for sure. That's going to be happening. I think the positive in this, though, is that if we're going to have a Saturn conjunction either way, you guys will see this with the next eclipse, I would rather it be a Venus-Saturn conjunction, because it does mean that the relationships that are meant to be will withstand some of the turbulence. This can also be a time where we are meeting soulmates. We're coming into connections with people that we were destined to meet, people who we have been waiting for, people who we've made sacrifices for. And we're going to really see what our relationships are truly made of, those of us who are partnered, and we're going to realize that love can endure. So it really depends on your own personal chart. Yes, this is going to impact, obviously, Aries and Libra very personally, especially if you have planets around these degrees. And then we're going to see on the 28th of the month, Venus will start sextiling Uranus. And I see this as, okay, now we're between eclipses. We're going to be coming into the next eclipse phase. Venus starts sextiling Uranus, where she's kind of feeling the effects of, okay, this change has happened, especially when she hits 20. So it's a transformation of relationships and how something new is being reborn. And it's kind of preparing us to come into some of those conjunctions in April with Uranus. Very interesting stuff. So, obviously we can lean into, making necessary sacrifices and, either commitment and getting stronger, and how we're adapting to that, or how we're letting something go, and like actually how that impacts us emotionally, physically, or financially. Now, this is more next month. But I still want to show this to you guys anyway, just so you understand why I'm like being such a crazy person about like this like eclipse. So this is the eclipse in April, just to give you guys a sneak peek. We're going to have a solar eclipse in Aries at 19 degrees. So this is about setting intentions for the relationship with ourselves, exactly per the minute, conjunct Chiron. So healing our own wounds. Ruled by Mars. Mars is conjunct Saturn. So where there are outside things out there that are impacting us energetically, blocking us, limiting us, where we feel like we're abandoned, or we feel alone, or it can be things that are coming up where like we are our own worst enemy. I think that encapsulates it perfectly. We can be our own worst enemy. Mars conjunct Saturn, secret enemies in Pisces, and where there are secret things that are kind of working against us. And then we've got Mercury, which will be retrograding at the time of the eclipse. So just a couple days later, we're going to see a Cazimi happen with Mercury and the Sun. So on a personal level, it's this moment of awareness that's like, I have to fix this thing. I have to heal this thing. I have to work through this. It has to happen. And it can be about physical ailments and issues that we need to heal. It can also mean collectively, and I have said this for a very long time. Go back in my videos, I've been saying this for a year. that spring of 2024, when this eclipse comes in, is going to finally be the turning point where there is an awareness that we have a health epidemic on our hands that is colossal. And people start to realize the true effects of it and how that's impacting all of us. And what we need to be doing to be taking our health back into our own hands, learning how to better heal ourselves, take care of ourselves, and realizing that I believe the medical institutions have failed us. Failure comes from Pisces or the 12th house. Mars and Saturn means that leadership has failed us when it comes to our health and our wellness. Nobody's going to come and save us. Nobody's going to rescue us. We have to do that ourselves. So when we put the picture and the pieces together and we look at, the new moon that we have coming up in Pisces, this is where we are preparing to do this. We're getting quiet, we're reflecting, we're thinking about what we want to grow, what we want to be eating, how we're coming up with a plan for adapting, for making changes in our lifestyle. Then we have there we go, lunar eclipse, which means we are breaking apart, separating or severing with things that don't support us, relationships that are superficial, partnerships that are not kind of doing it for us, where we are with other people just because we don't want to be alone. And we're having to be willing to break away and kind of go into the unknown and really focus on taking care of ourselves. So that way we can really, really do this work by the time we get to early April. And then we'll have that Mercury retrograde that's going to go back and forth over the eclipse point, return to the North Node. Think of April as a huge month for healing. There is something going on. It depends on what area Aries is for you, but that is where you are completely engulfed in that area all month long. And this eclipse that's coming up will actually set something in motion for about 13 months that we're going to be healing collectively. Mars will still go through there. Venus will still go through there. So it's going to get activated quite a bit. So I encourage you guys to really, really look at March as a month where it's like, look, something's coming to an end. We gotta wrap this up. And if it feels like you're blocked or you're having trouble sleeping or you just can't quite get through a barrier, you're wondering what the hang up is, part of it is it's literally the last couple of days towards the end of December and everybody's mentally checked out and they're done. And that's just kind of how the energy feels right now. So whether you're waiting until the ingress happens when the sun goes into Aries sometime around the 19th, maybe you want to wait until after the solar eclipse in Aries, because I feel like it's kind of like a false start with the sun ingress into Aries, because we'll have that solar eclipse or the Mercury retrograde. I, for one, personally, I'm setting all my new intentions, doing all of my new health habits with the Pisces new moon because it's in my 6th house. But I feel like it's going to be so important to stay open as we get into April and be willing to kind of see what's getting reworked for us. And then probably after the Mercury retrograde, when Mercury goes direct, is when I would be doing new things. And by that time that happens, well, Jupiter's already conjunct Uranus and something is already kind of like evolving and expanding. So there's no perfect time for it. I think that Aries season in general is when we want to kind of initiate new things. So if you're still feeling a little sluggish, cut yourself some slack until we see this ingress. Do make sure that you are subscribed to the channel so that way you can get my eclipse reports, because I'm going to be putting those out as well. So you guys can really see my deep dive that I'm going to do on both of the eclipses. And also like the horoscopes and the other stuff that come out throughout this month. But what do you guys think? I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you think about the month of March and its madness. Any hot takes, or if you guys want to come back to this and leave me some comments. Obviously, I'm shooting this a month in advance, so we're going to be seeing how this plays out together collectively. But make sure you give me a thumbs up. Sharing is caring. Share this video out to somebody who can appreciate it. We are all in this together, so we're going to be kind of seeing how this next month unfolds. But even in spite of some of the tricky transits, I'm very optimistic, and I know that March through June is like warp speed. Things are evolving very quickly, and a lot of us are waking up, and I think you guys are part of it if you're watching this kind of content on YouTube. with that being said, I'll let you guys go. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to click the links below to check out my website if you guys want to pick up a personal astrology calendar for your phone, or if you want to buy a print to keep in touch and on the up and up with some of the transits that are happening in real time. You can also see my courses and my booking page if you'd like to book a one-on-one reading with me. I am now booking in June and July of 2024. Anyways, I'll let you guys go. Enjoy your month, and I will see you all back here very soon. Take care.